Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me today, as per the usual, kind of my best friend, much like a Patrick Starfish to my SpongeBob SquarePants, A1 Brian E. Roach. What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
I wish you could do a Patrick Starfish voice. I could almost do like a
I wish I could.
Like, hey, Patrick, blah, like something like that. And
that wasn't bad.
Hey, all right, good. I'm getting somewhere. Maybe I have a new career path that's just been forged out of this show. So speaking of career paths, we do actually have coming to you a little earlier in the week than we usually do for our second episode. Always trying to come to you at least twice a week, especially in the off season, could be challenging. But finally, the itch I have to scratch. Now, I'd let you and the professor, and I was going to talk to the professor. We were going to talk about some different things with the Steelers off season and, you know, roster building and all this fun stuff. But we're going to shove that out of the way because there's one major roster move that appears to be heading full sail ahead, full steam ahead, maybe. Somebody said, you know what, someone tried, I think it got confused with the last show, moot point and mute point. It is moot point. I thought I made that pretty clear, but yes. It is moot, not mook point. I'm going to talk. I don't know if mook is correct to say or politically correct at this point. I really don't care because I have a lot of other bad things I would like to say about a one Antonio Brown,
Ronald Ocean,
whatever he wants to call himself. He wants to post all these different cryptic things, and then I said, even the one that he did put here is cryptic, although you don't really want to read between the lines or overthink this little video. Thank you, Steeler Nation, for a big 9 years, ... Time to move on and forward. Lots of dots with a little hand emoji symbol with the two fingers and the peace sign, hashtag new demands. And then, of course, he's at it again today. Well, that was yesterday when he decided to, post this. He must have been working on this video and couldn't show up for his court date for doing 100 miles per hour down McKnight Road or wherever that was in the Pittsburgh area. And there's certain things, Brian, the reason I kept myself out of this conversation for so long is because I'm an AB defender. He's the GOAT, okay? He's done things that not only no other Pittsburgh wide receiver has done ever before, but anyone in NFL history has ever done. They create records in this guy's name. There's definitely effigies. I have half a closet of different Steelers jerseys, everything from a Bumblebee jersey when I couldn't find it, and I was supporting this guy over Mike Wallace, all the way to these block number throwbacks where I said, you know what, I'm going to buy another Antonio Brown jersey because this is a guy that's retiring a Steeler. They paid him money. He didn't make all these big squabbling demands. Everything was like a rumor. It wasn't like Le'Veon Bell rapping about money and saying he won't play on a franchise tag when he'd show up to training camp in a Rolls Royce and everybody's like, oh, there's all this money thing. AB needs to be making more than, the nice rich contract they gave him instead of Mike Wallace. And then they paid it forward, and then they extended him, and they gave him even more money. He's one of the highest paid, probably, I think, second to Ben on the team, on the roster. And, and then he tweets today, don't be tolerated, be celebrated. It's like, what do you mean tolerated? Did people not appreciate you by paying you all of these loads of money, making you a Pittsburgh Steeler in the first place out of the 6th round from Central Michigan? Western Michigan. Jeez, I'm tongue-tied now.
Something Michigan.
Something in Michigan. We don't acknowledge Michigan here. But anyways, sorry, folks in Michigan. If you are Steelers fans, we still love you. You just need to move. Anyways, OH.
IO.
We've got some rambling to go. You know what? This thing with the time to move on and forward, hashtag new demands, I've had it. I'm done. I think anyone else who's had patience for, I've tried to think rationally and reasonably with what happened that final. How do you go from having like the best game in the season against the New Orleans Saints to not even suiting up and being mad and not showing up? And everybody wants to say this stupid stuff about a team MVP award that they didn't even vote on yet. So everything started before that. I wondered if there was things with Mike Tomlin or Ben Roethlisberger, and we'll talk about that too. I tried to come up with rational, reasonable thoughts here. Okay, he drives 100 miles per hour down McKnight Road or whatever. I've taken my Camaro up to, there's a governor in it. I think it could only go to 115, but I've put, or maybe 110, and it pushed to 115 downhill or otherwise. We've all done dumb things as young men, and we tend to forget that a lot of these guys are young men that come into a lot of fame and money and celebrity and things of that, and I try to put myself in their own shoes. I try to see, is there any other outside factors? Can this be mitigated? And to just to quote the professor who I was talking with earlier, this is beyond repair.
Yeah, look, I have on the flip side of what you said, where you've been an Antonio Brown defender, I have not been. Almost since the get-go of the news coming out about why he wasn't at the last game and what may or may not have transpired. I have said pretty clearly it's time to cut ties. But at the same time as agreeing that doesn't mean I hate Antonio Brown or I'm ready to burn a jersey or any of that kind of craziness. I got 4 of them myself. So, I appreciate everything that he has done for the team. I appreciate the memories he has created. I believe he is, if not the best receiver in the league, one of the top 3 receivers in the league, and at times has been the best receiver in the league. I 100% agree he is the hardest working guy on the field. I also 100% agree that Antonio Brown is all about Antonio Brown. Now, I think just is what it is. And I was much like Mike Tomlin. I'm willing to tolerate you until I can replace you. And while I don't think they can replace him easily, and I don't think you actually replace somebody like Antonio Brown, when we first talked about this, Zach and I said there is a scenario here that plays out where the Steelers lose playmakers in the league, being Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, and end up a better team. Doesn't mean that they're a more talented team, but they are actually a better team as a result. And sometimes you add by subtracting. And with this, look, I started off on this by saying easily get a first rounder this year and maybe a future pick, hopefully a future first rounder. I'm now at the point where I don't think you can. And Antonio Brown is no longer benefiting himself by continuing with the drama. If he wants out, that's fine. It should have been a comment to the front office, which there's been a lot of speculation that maybe this latest goodbye tweet has to do with the fact that he actually did talk to somebody, found out they weren't going to capitulate to whatever he wanted them to capitulate to, and he went, fine, I'm done, and I want to be traded. We don't know that for certain. Certainly not. That's just speculation by people. But it's just weird, the timing of certain things that come out and how he's decided to pursue this path. It just isn't. It's not benefiting him. And I look at it, and while I think that there are a lot of people out there that look at Antonio Brown and go, I don't care about his age. I care about his production. His production is still very, very high. And, he's a great asset to a team. Talent. Who wants this drama in their locker room?
Yeah, that's the big one. Who wants to deal with the crazy? I mean, it's beyond. And, you know, even just looking at his Twitter profile right here, there's a picture of him with cameras on him. There's the picture with him landing in the helicopter from training camp, which, in fact, I don't know why everyone protected him for so long and didn't mention the fact that he had his own private residence. He doesn't even stay with the team at St. Vincent's College during training camp. There's the number one indicator for you right there. Why would you allow that? See, this is where I say the Steelers organization is somewhat responsible in this aspect for allowing some of these things to happen and to occur. I don't know what you do if you put your foot down and then say, well, no, you can't have your own private place or whatever like that. It would be like having his own like private dressing room and not being in the locker room. You know what I mean? It's a pretty sacred thing. That's the reason why they do this St. Vincent's thing and always have. They don't go to some resort or something in California or whatever, like some of these teams do, or have fancy hotels or anything. You know, it's meant to make you into men and make you a team. You mentioned a very good point about being a better team. That's because of the distractions being gone, the locker room cancers and headaches. And the thing you said about, you know, the one thing that we're saying here is now we're very appreciative of what he's done for this organization as fans. And where does that appreciation go? Where's that legacy? Because we've just witnessed this with another man that we wanted to say is he who shall not be named, defensive edition, and that was James Harrison going to the New England Patriots. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, he's kind of dead to me. He had a mixed reaction when he returned with I believe the Super Bowl 40 team was the one that got honored at the LA Chargers game during halftime back in December. And it was a mixed reaction for him. He was one of the last guys because they went in numerical order. And I'm like, you know, some people will still say, hey, I don't hold any ill will toward him trying to, you know, squeeze whatever he had left out of the, you know, he knew he was going to be done playing in his playing years. Whereas I don't know what's flipped the lid on Antonio Brown, but let's take this to another spot before we go all through that. Is, you know, saying a better team. A better teammate might be somebody like a Juju Smith-Schuster. A better teammate might be somebody like a James Conner in place of Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Everyone asked, how would you replace Le'Veon Bell's production? And that was answered by the way James Conner played this year. A lot of people very encouraged, I would say, by the way Juju Smith-Schuster played this year. A lot of combat catches, a lot of big highlight reel plays. Whether that makes Antonio Brown jealous or not, I don't know. Whether or not he can do that without Antonio Brown drawing the type of coverage that he does, yet to be seen. But yet, you know where the Steelers cut ties here, and you know the way the free agent market works. When you're looking for a player, you're not trying to pay them or acquire them based on their past performance. You're trying to hedge a bet on what they will provide your team going forward. We just saw a big trade with, we don't know all of the details yet. Sounds like a third-round pick for Joe Flacco to go to the Denver Broncos, and a huge contract. And, you know, Antonio Brown's not young here either. He's a 30-year-old wide receiver, and you don't know when that wall's going to get hit. I mean, you've seen it with a Brandon Marshall or an Ocho Cinco where they just fell off a cliff. Demarius Thomas is there right now as well, and also coming back. He's got to come off of an injury. These guys get up there in age. Some of them are able to play and almost ageless, but I mean, eventually even Randy Moss and Jerry Rice and those guys, they had to hang it up. They tried to bounce around to a few teams who had interest. I mentioned Ocho Cinco. I mentioned Terrell Owens. How many franchises have these guys been on? They've all been, in their own ways, attention-drawing personalities. And I got to wonder the type of organization that's going to say, why, yes, you know what? I would be willing to give up something of value that I have, i.e. a draft pick and or a player, to acquire this guy when he's out there, you know, saying and doing all of these crazy things. Now, to mention that, he decided to retweet this tweet. Now, I'm trying to see who actually... this is from at 305 Mayor. And this is something he retweeted, said, at AB84, come on home to the crib and bring at Le'Veon Bell with ya. It's time for the Dolphins to make that transition to the real. And I just think to myself, with that porous offensive line that they've had down there, and Ryan Tannehill and or Brock Osweiler or whoever they have throwing the ball, is this really going to make the Dolphins on paper? It should be better, but what's the real translation here? You think Antonio Brown catches 60, 65 balls for 700 yards and, a handful of touchdowns. It's all the better. Mike Wallace really, he had what, 1,000-yard season, maybe 2 since he's left the Steelers. And, he was in his prime. He was going after that big first contract after his rookie deal. Here's a guy that's already made his money. I think if he, depending on where he goes, but more than likely his potential landing places, as you've mentioned, doesn't really put Antonio Brown in a Super Bowl ring-chasing mode. He may never get that Lombardi trophy or play on the biggest stage. I don't know what his motivation is when he does a hashtag new demands.
Yeah, I think... I'm perplexed, and it almost gets me speechless. And here's the thing. Antonio Brown is a guy who existed in the past. Who we are dealing with now is AB. And Antonio Brown and AB are 2 separate individuals. Antonio Brown is the 6th-round draft pick who came in hungry, worked his butt off, shut up, and played football, okay? Antonio Brown is the guy who signed the deal. That was his first big deal, got paid, and didn't hold out and didn't make a stink. That's Antonio Brown. AB is the guy we have now.
Or Ronald Ocean, yeah.
Or Ronald Ocean, or whatever has gone on. I don't know. Call him Blonde Stash. I don't know what his new name is.
Hollywood.
With this
no, that's his cousin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's his cousin with this ridiculous-looking blonde caterpillar on his face. But nonetheless, look, you were talking about his legacy. First of all, this is one difference between, because people are like, oh, yeah, he's going to come back in all these events. The next time Antonio Brown shows up in Heinz Field, if it's in fact in Heinz Field, might be when they have the 100th anniversary team in like 2032, because he's won nothing. There's not going to be a Super Bowl reunion tour for Antonio Brown. He's not going to be coming back in those types of events. So what is his legacy? His legacy is he put up a lot of stats. He put up great numbers, and that's it. He didn't win anything. He never won anything with the Steelers, okay? So and what it appears to me is he doesn't care if he wins anything anywhere else. What he wants to do is go someplace else and put up the same kind of numbers he's been putting up so he can show that it's him. And, we've talked about this before as well. There's such a unique chemistry, or had been, between Ben and AB, that he's going to understand that there is a difference at some point. And many people have tweeted what his numbers were like playing with the Steelers with quarterbacks other than Ben Roethlisberger, and how his production is much less than it was rather than playing with Ben. But, you go catch passes from somebody who cannot throw the ball to the exact pinpoint location that Roethlisberger can, so that he can make some of the catches that he can make, because he's in the perfect position to do so. I've maintained for a long time, Ben doesn't get the credit he deserves for making some of the throws he makes. Yes, sometimes he makes bonehead throws and forces the ball, but other times he makes a pass that very few people can make, putting it at exactly the spot where it gives Antonio Brown or another receiver, like, say, Santonio Holmes, the opportunity to make a catch that it's either they're going to make it or it's not going to be anything, but the ball has to be in exactly the right spot, and he has an ability to do that. Go play with a quarterback who can't do that. And all of a sudden, those 110 catch seasons are exactly what you said, 65 catch seasons, or for 800 yards, and you're left wondering what's going on. Now, I don't know. If he goes to the right situation, I think Antonio Brown will get his numbers because he'll demand his numbers. I think Antonio Brown will get catches. I just don't know whether it will be quite the same. My guess is it won't be. And, then it becomes, where does he end up? I still think the Steelers are going to want a first-round pick. That's what I think. I think they want a first-round pick. The question is, what are they going to settle for? Because I'm to the point where I no longer think they're going to get a first-round pick. And let's be clear, because we've played this scenario out, and we've had some commentary saying, "Oh, quit shortchanging your team for Antonio Brown. He's worth two ones." It doesn't matter what we think he's worth. The question is, what can the Steelers actually get? And you have to have, a trade partner who's willing to be dumb and do something stupid to get those 2 first-round picks. It's never going to happen. Antonio Brown has made it clear he wants out of town. Nobody is going to highball him. All right? Nobody's going to highball the Steelers. They're going to lowball the Steelers. I don't know if highballing is actually a real thing, but, nobody's going to come after them and throw, excessive value at Antonio Brown. They're going to try and lowball him because they all know he wants out of town now. And while he can't leave unless the Steelers let him, because they hold all the cards, he's under contract for 3 years. It's not like he can just decide he's going. He doesn't get to dictate his terms. At the same time, by doing what he's doing, he limits what the Steelers are going to be able to get back from him. And if the bottom line is come, the time where they feel it's time to make a decision and the best offer they get is like a 3rd round pick, do you decide, you know what? We're not going to trade you. And if you don't want to play, that's fine. We just won't pay you. And the next year that money will all go towards our cap. And if you don't want to play that year, it'll be the same thing. Or, because he has no control over what happens to him.
Yeah.
He just doesn't.
Yeah, I like how you say, this is it isn't what you want, it's what you're going to get. That's what I tell my daughter when we're sitting at the dinner table. And she makes kind of demands and throws the same toddler type of fits, and it just doesn't work that way. And I would love to charge every one of you for listening to this show $300 an episode. Not going to happen because it's in fact, I don't think there's any suitors out there. So now I'm going to have to lower my expectations. And that number one, that first round pick, that's pretty much, I think, where they're at right now, especially when this guy goes out there and devalues himself. What are you doing? Get off social media. I made a very good comparison. This is going to be a very hot take for some people. But, people like to say about the Steelers drama. They like to talk about Le'Veon Bell. They like to talk about Antonio Brown. You think Aaron Rodgers is any less of a diva in this regard? He got a head coach fired this year. Last offseason was all about his contract. He used to have these, he had touchdown celebrations. Maybe he didn't get flagged for him or whatever. He walked around with a wrestling title belt around his waist on the sidelines for a very long time, early in his career. No less of a young man that, has his own demands. The only difference is you don't see him on social media running his yapper. And when you go out and you say things like, don't be tolerated, be celebrated. I think everyone in Pittsburgh, I think all Steelers fans celebrated Antonio Brown, as evidenced by how many jerseys you and I have hanging in the closet just alone. I don't know what flipped the lid here on this guy to make it, why is he doing this? Why is he tweeting this? Why is he trolling? Because when you say things like this, all you're doing is you're really trolling for attention, and most of it's going to be negative because there's people that are fed up and they're upset with the way you've handled your business. If you show up week 17, you just bite the bullet, and then you start saying stuff after the fact, and you just stay off social media and you let your agent handle it, and you can let everybody else talk, but you're sitting here and you're spreading the fire almost every few days. It's got to be something about you. You don't show up for a court date, and all the other things now start to fall in line. Although I will say one thing, if anybody brings up the thing that was like the domestic dispute, I can't even say it, whatever baby mama, or I don't know if he has several baby mamas or whatever be the situation he had down in Miami, looks like, that was something that may have been blown a little out of proportion. I don't like to get in these guys' private life. You don't hear me talk about it for too long. But however, most people would be willing to look past that. If he didn't have all of these other things happen, it probably wouldn't blow out of proportion. And what you have is you have a bunch of people that are sitting on the outside. They may have some contacts within the Steelers organization. Even we do, but let's face it, how many people are talking? You got 31 other organizations, what I'm trying to get at, that don't have any more of a clue as to this craziness than all of us do. But they hold the keys to their team's future, and are they going to be willing to give up something that is of great value to their team's future, such as a first-round pick, to get somebody who may be around for a couple of years and then out of the league. Or let's face it, let's put it this way. I've told this story before. Antonio Brown has been very great with the fans for being such a big personality and superstar. I personally witnessed him take my cousin and put him on his lap, 6-year-old boy, put him on his lap, take a photo because he saw the kid crying at training camp this year. I've seen him work on the jugs machine for an extra 20, 30 minutes. I see him out there doing all this stuff. He certainly works hard. He is not, okay, he got in trouble with the speeding ticket, but he wasn't a DUI. There was even that with Hines Ward that a lot of us have forgotten about. He hasn't failed any drug tests. So I don't necessarily know what it is that's necessarily pressing the buttons here, and I don't think anybody else knows what it is. Is he just really that unhappy that he has made millions of dollars and had a franchise and or Hall of Fame caliber career in Pittsburgh? I don't know. I mean, when you look at this from the outside there, and you got to say, what is it going to take to keep this guy happy? That's what these other teams are thinking. Can he fit in our culture? Is he going to be happy? Or is he going to give us the same problems the Steelers have? And the only problems I could see the Steelers having, let's think about who's higher up in the food chain here. You have Art Rooney too. You have the front office, Kevin Colbert, whoever else may be in the coaching staff, Mike Tomlin, and then there's Big Ben. Who else is untouchable within this organization that can't? I mean, Big Ben even got Todd Haley. He got his demands. He said his little thing that was interpreted as possibly retiring if Todd Haley wasn't sent out. Where is it to the point where Antonio Brown is new demands and needs to be out of here, that this can't be repaired? That's the part that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, look, this is. There's two aspects of this in my mind. First is the locker room itself, and there've been a lot of talking heads that speculate on this. Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, all the guys at the Pro Bowl talked about it when asked. I think the locker room can easily be repaired. Guys are willing to forgive as long as you show up and contribute. But what I'm not sure can be repaired, and I say that even though I think Aditi Kikawala reported the other day that Tomlin is on the verge of losing the locker room if they don't resolve this situation. I don't know how true that is or how true that's not. We don't have that kind of inside information, and I'm not going to get that kind of inside information.
The locker room isn't even together right now. This is probably guys just text messaging or a few guys working out somewhere in warmer climate right now. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is, I don't know who she's talking to either. And while I don't want to disparage her, she's also been wrong at times, as have many of these reporters, because they get stuff in their ear from players. They have to, or somebody in the organization, and that person may or may not have an agenda. Who knows? Okay. But I do agree that this situation and Tomlin has a big portion of blame here, but it puts Tomlin in a bad position, because that's where how do you get your respect back amongst the team? How does the upper management deal with a situation like that, where you've got a player who's essentially trying to dictate terms, and the Steelers as an organization do not accept people trying to dictate to them what they're going to do. It does not play well with the Rooneys or with other members of the organization. So that's the relationship I think is going to be a difficult one to repair, is the relationship between player and coach and player and management. And I don't know if it can be repaired at this point. And when you start doing what he did recently with the new demands thing, with officially requesting a trade, I want out of Pittsburgh, goodbye to the fans, all those kind of things. And then, then the follow-up, the little, emoji cartoon, business is open, and, comment with the next city. It's over. Well, in my mind, it's over.
Oh, yeah.
He has to be gone one way or another. He has to be gone. Even if what gone means is that you don't trade him, you don't release him, you force him to adhere to his contract, and he chooses not to, because at this point, I believe he may choose not to. He might pull a Le'Veon Bell and say, I'm not playing for you. And you go from there, or you let Pouncy sit on him during the season and say, shut the heck up,
And even Pouncy forgiving, I think a lot of people don't realize, the guys they talk to with the Pro Bowl. Now, TJ is he was a second-year player. He's entering year 3. I eventually believe he'll be a locker room leader, but they talk to Cam Hayward and they talk to Pouncy. People don't realize Pouncey's been there for so long, and he is one of the anchors, one of the cornerstones in this locker room. And with he and Hayward, defensive captain, these guys are willing to forgive. But that, you know what, you got to show that you want it. It doesn't look like he wants it. He looks like he wants out, and they get less cryptic as this continues to go. We're talking about repairing. Repairing is only if he comes back in, and these guys look like they're willing to forgive. And I don't think that's going to hurt Mike Tomlin whatsoever when you got the guys who are the team leaders, the guys who play alongside you in the trenches. This isn't, they're there, they're doing battle together, and as long as you're willing to show it. But what's to prevent this from happening once again in the future? I have no idea. I think you can repair, but I think the easiest option is to replace. But make no mistake about it, it would be a lot easier to replace if he wasn't making the kind of money he was making. You remember like a LeGarrette Blount or one of these guys that goes and starts running their mouth like a Lance Moore. These guys are gone in an instant, and almost everyone is replaceable when you're talking about professional football. It's why they say the letters NFL stands for not for long. And I think, that's going to be Antonio Brown is going to be not for long. Whoever decides to pony up for this, it's going to be 2 or 3 years and out of the league. And, when that, he could very well play and be, productive until age 35 or 36. I don't see that necessarily happening. So I don't know. I really don't know. I'm with you. I'm past it. I don't know that there's much more you could say. Whatever happens, happens. I just don't believe he's going to be a Steeler in 2019, unfortunately.
No, I can't. I just can't see it happening. Even and as I said, even if he is a Steeler technically, because he's still under contract, I just don't see him suiting up for the Steelers. I see Antonio Brown as being done at this point. Whether done means he doesn't fulfill his contract and never plays again, or done means he gets traded to another team. I think those are the two scenarios, and the likelihood of him showing up in training camp and being a functional participating member of the Steelers in 2019 seems non-existent to me. Now, we touched on this, and I want to talk about this real quick for a second. The idea, people have said there's all these scenarios about what's going on with him. First, it was I got into an argument with somebody, Ben, supposedly. Then it's I think at the Super Bowl he was asked about this and he was like, I just want to win. I just want to win. And then it's I'm tired of being the scapegoat for all this drama. I don't know what the deal is with him and Ben. Doesn't matter to me. Get over it one way or the other. Ben says nothing ever happened. Nobody else has actually said it is other than beat writers. I want to win, but you want to go to San Francisco. No, I don't buy the I want to win thing.
Sounds like Eric Weddle in free agency with the Ravens.
Give me a break. You don't want to win. That's not – I don't think – there certainly is a part of Antonio Brown, I believe, that would like a Super Bowl ring because it helps cement your legacy. It helps cement your Hall of Fame credentials. But if he never gets it and all he does is get his stats, I think he's happy with that. I don't think that he's driven by a need to win a championship. And that just comes out to me in a lot of different ways. And then the third one, scapegoat for the drama. Scapegoat for the drama? Dude, you're the origin of 90% of the drama. Scapegoat.
Facebook Live.
Yeah, exactly. I don't buy that either. So, I agree with you in the sense I don't know that we will ever truly know the truth of what is going on here. And, over time, there'll be, I'm sure, a lot of different takes on what the situation is. We've already got a whole bunch of different takes on what the situation is, and more will come out. But the actual core truth, I don't know that we're ever going to know. I just, the way I look at it is, what difference does that make? The bottom line is it's gotten to the point where he wants to be out. I think that we can love the things he did when he was here. We can be disappointed in the way that he's chosen to decide to leave. But if he doesn't want to be here, go away.
And like you said, motivation, he's already got his stats. He's already done what no one else has done. I believe he's done enough to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer at this point. He just doesn't have the hardware as far as, like, I don't think he'll ever be an MVP. He was pretty close before he got hurt. And you know what? He's been getting injured a little more. He was an Iron Man, got injured in camp, was injured previously the end of that season. You don't heal as quick as you used to, and you tend to get hurt more as you get older, up there in age. It still burns me to say, 30 is old, but it is in the NFL, at certain positions anyway. And, he's already made money. So he has money, he has the stats, he's already famous, he's a celebrity, and what else is there? What else is there for him to, I don't know, what is there for him to achieve? Because if he does go somewhere like San Francisco, they're rebuilding still, and there's no telling that that's even a playoff team. You don't know. I mean, it's way early to be trying to say that sort of stuff, and there is parity in the NFL, and, everyone thought the Steelers were a playoff team, and then they weren't, and I think that by saying c'est la vie, the Steelers correct a lot of things. They get to look past, they got to move on, and they're eventually going to have to move on from Ben Roethlisberger as well. They're starting to get younger in certain facets, and they're looking to be competitive in the future life beyond some of these guys. And they've already looked at that beyond Ben by drafting Josh Dobbs and Mason Rudolph as well, and they're going to be looking at that now. Antonio Brown, they were already looking at that with Le'Veon Bell by taking James Conner. They're a team that's looking to reload and to continue to build upon what they already have. So the only thing I got left for you, Brian, and before I let you go, and thanks again for joining us and all of our listeners, I'm not burning any of my jerseys. I just don't know that I'm going to be able to wear them because, you know what, it kind of burns me that I have a closet with Jerome Bettis or Heath Miller or Rod Woodson or Ben Roethlisberger, Troy Polamalu, Hines Ward, Brett Kiesel. I can wear all of these jerseys. I don't feel any shame. I've been able to avoid, a Mike Wallace jersey or Santonio Holmes or some of these guys that have left on not maybe the best of terms. But even in those cases, it's like I wouldn't wear those jerseys after those guys left. I wouldn't have been able to wear a James Harrison jersey if I did have one, and I never purchased one. I almost bought one clearance, believe it or not, when he left the first time around and went to the Bengals. But aside from all of that type of stuff, it's just, what are you leaving yourself here? If you leave the Steelers, will Steelers fans eventually forgive him? I think they would. I think that depends too, because if he goes somewhere else and he makes that team a contender and the Steelers end up being very damaged either financially and or by not having what could be, another good 2 to 3 years out of Antonio Brown, there will be some resentment there, no doubt. No doubt whatsoever. But, the Steelers have been fortunate in recent years where there's been players. Troy Polamalu still doesn't show up to some of these things because he's not happy the way his career ended, but he never went out and said anything about it. He still doesn't say anything about it. He stays in the shadows, and that's kind of private guy that he likes to be. Hines Ward he had feelers out there to continue playing, realized I think the Jets were the only team that had any kind of interest, and he decided to, call it quits. Jerome Bettis retired at the top of his game. And all of these guys are guys that I mentioned. I have jerseys in the closets. Many other people do, and they have a lasting legacy. That's the kind of thing there. Heath Miller retired, stuff like that. I don't know where this leaves Antonio Brown. I do think it's foolish when people burn jerseys and stuff like that. Maybe you'll be able to wear it once again years later and say, you're proud of that guy or whatever. Maybe he'll come back and try to repair some of that damage. Like, Santonio Holmes, very involved with Pittsburgh now, even though he had a career beyond the Steelers. And he was traded, just a 5th-round pick. And that was a guy that was a Super Bowl MVP. Yeah. So, I mean, it's very tough to say what the future holds. I know I'm not burning any of my jerseys, and maybe we'll reflect on this in a few years and say AB was right, AB was wrong, and we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just, the funny thing in my mind is because I went to that Cincinnati game and the jersey I was wearing was 84.
I wore a lot of those this year. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm in the same boat with you. I'm not burning any of my jerseys. I think that's silly, to be quite honest. But again, I don't know that I can wear them anytime soon and feel good about it. We'll have to wait and see how all of this unfolds, and people will absolutely forgive. It's going to take time. This type of scenario is what leaves a bad taste in Steelers fans' mouths. This type of perceived selfish me attitude doesn't play well with this fan base. So he's got a bit more work to do to be forgiven than some people might have in the past who sought other teams or who left. Look, I think people are more forgiving of Mike Wallace right now
yeah,
than they would be of Antonio Brown. Or, it just is what it is. So I think, eventually time heals. So eventually people will feel okay about Antonio Brown, provided he doesn't go to another team and then just start running his mouth about how much he hates the Steelers. Or what a bad, how they treated him badly, or how he was so abused here, or just whatever. If he could keep his yaps shut, and avoid stepping on his own feet, eventually he'll be forgiven. Otherwise, not so much.
And you know what? That's the thing where he's cryptic in these tweets, because he hasn't come right out and said, you know what, Ben's the problem, Mike Tomlin's the problem, anything like that. And I think he may be professional enough to keep that close to his vest. And it could also be because maybe just ever so slightly that door might still be open, because he knows that he doesn't have the cards in his hand. They're all in the Steelers' hands. They hold all the cards here. So, Brian, thanks once again, buddy. Little early, but, we had to get some of this off our chest.
Absolutely, and it's always a pleasure. The dynamic duo being together is always a fun thing.
The Fab 2. So the Fab 2. Well, anyways, folks, we'll be looking at your comments. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of them on this hot topic, and we're going to boomerang back around with some more draft needs, off-season needs, and other things, unless there's more, and I use this term lightly, news coming out of the Steelers organization. Until next time, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. We encourage you to be safe, be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.